In this video, I will show you the speed up process of making this artwork, which I use as the entry for Wacom Indonesia's Digital Imaging Competition 2021 with the theme Retouching Indonesia. So it's all about Indonesia. I created the fishing village theme because I think Indonesia is an archipelago country that is so familiar with sea and fishing. But then I decide to give a little bit of fantasy touch because I want to achieve something a bit different than just a scenery of a village. It also makes a good opportunity to add more Indonesian iconic object around the village. So this is the speed art of the artwork with commentaries on some parts of it. Enjoy! I create the character from Adobe Fuse and render in Cinema 4D. And then I add this village image and I remove some unwanted objects with clone stamp tool. And then I add this beautiful landscape of Labuan Bajo, and then I create water just to as a reference, as the basic reference first, and then I add some details for the fishing village, and I found this perfect image from Unsplash. And then here I adjust a little bit of its tone by using color balance and curves. And next I add another detail for the fishing village with the same image with different objects. And here I add a magical temple named Tanah Lot in Bali that sits on a big rock offshore. It's an absolutely beautiful temple. And then here's my first attempt to create an arc gate, but then I changed my mind and used this image instead. I find it's better using this image, so I play around with it and change the tone just to match with the surroundings. And then here I start duplicating and change the shape by using liquify. As you can see there, I modify some shape of it so it shapes like an arc gate or whatever it is, like a fantasy kind of thing. And then I add sky just to add as a reference for a while, and then I also add this island just to put it on the right side, just to fill some space first. And then I add this magical temple of Prambanan, which is in central Java, and I put it there on the bottom of the arc gate or arc stone or whatever. And I decide to add more just to give some kind of massive temple that sits or stay in the rock formation there. And I add the gate. I make a bigger gate there, and then I duplicate and add more temple part in the various sides of this rock formation just to create some kind of fantasy theme with that temple image. And the rest is to duplicate some more parts into some more sides on those rocks. And yeah, I also add more details for the rock formation itself. I decide to duplicate the fantasy rock formation to fill the space on the further side, and I modify the shape a bit to make it different from the original part. And then here I tidy up the reflection for a while, and then I add this traditional boat, and I mask the background with the pen tool. And then I put there, and then I create reflection by duplicating the original layer and only refill the reflection, and then change the tone a bit so it matches with the water. And then here I add the other boat, fishing boat, and I put it on the left side. And I add some details for the water, so I add some rocks, and I also create a reflection effects there by duplicating it, and then give some tones and change the opacity a bit. And this is the kite image that I took some years ago, and here I changed the color with a gradient map, so the color is red and white, which is Indonesian flag color. And then I add a shadow effects, and I also use color range to retain the shiny parts of that kite, just to get some details of it. And here I create the can, which is used as the kite spool, where the kite strings is rolled up there. I just do a simple digital painting, which is I'm not really good at, but because it's a very small detail, so I can be compromised with that. And here I modify the lighting on the pier by using curves and a few brushes. And here I finally create the shadow for the pier, so it looks convincing to stay on that water. And here now I start painting the rim light on the kid. I just use a simple soft brush just to paint on the surface that I want the light to get into. And here I'm using the curves and modified layer mask to paint the light. I also use hue saturation. There are several tools that I use, but basically it's just curves, exposure, and hue saturation. And here I add more lighting details on the pier surface. And here I modify the lighting of the fishing village. As usual, I always use curves, hue saturation, and a simple brush, and specifically a layer only for the lighting effects. As you can see on the layers panel, there I'm using curves just to modify the color balance of it, and then selectively refilling the lights on only to some surfaces that I think the light falls there. I also paint it manually just by using a simple brush tool. Here I try to retain some details of the boat, and also I add some lighting effects with the same technique I apply on the fishing village. And now here I also adjust the lighting of that island, and then I duplicate to create a reflection effect and apply a blur just to make the reflection more convincing. And then here I also modify the lighting on Tanah Lot Temple, and I create the lighting effects by using a specialized layer with screen blending mode on, and paint it with a yellow color brush. And here I modify more details. And now here I create some mist effects just to give some depth between or distance between the objects, and also give some kind of heavenly feel. And as usual, I add some lighting effects, and here I'm using dodge and burn. And also modify the lighting a bit just to fit with the surroundings by using color balance. And here there are a lot of layers with a different lighting condition, so that I jump forward between adjustment tools or layer adjustment just to match between those layers. And yeah, it's quite a bit crazy, but for me it's quite fun to do so. As for the part, I'm using exposure layer adjustment. I darken that first and then selectively reveal its original lighting by using brush. For me, exposure does the perfect job for that case. And here I add image of a dog just to accompany the kid, so he's not that lonely in that scene. And as usual, I add lighting effects on the dog by using some kind of grass brush because of its furry surface of the dog. And then here I decide to add a balinese gate, and I would like to put it on the very far right side. I want this acts as the main entrance of this village. As you can see, the lighting condition of that gate is quite different from the surroundings, so I modify the tones by using curves and add a few fogs there to make the gate feels like it's on a far side. And then I add a few birds in the sky just to give more life. And then this Indonesian flag I add on the fishing village so that it matches with the theme that I'm working on. I adjust lighting with exposure and paint a bit. And then I decide to change the sky to give some more dramatic feels. And then I modify the tones so that it feels more natural with the surroundings. I add more lights as well, so because of that I have to modify the shadings on some areas, because in this case there was a brighter lights, so there will be more shadow on the other side. So I modify that by using exposure layer adjustment. And here I create the reflection for the temple by duplicating the original layer, give some motion blur, and hide some areas by using layer mask. The same applies for the fishing village, the flag, and the other flag. And then I add some more lighting details on several parts of this scenery. And then finally I add textures for the water. I took it from the other image and I turned the blending mode to screen and darken some area so that it doesn't look too bright. And then here I modify the cloud shape or formation by using transform warp and Finally, I add more yellowish tone by using layer with soft light blending mode, and for the final tone I usually use camera raw filter in Photoshop. But usually before I really call it a wrap, I always do some reviewing by carefully examining some details. I always do some minor adjustments until I'm really satisfied to it. I took around 9 hours in Photoshop to complete this, and I'm quite satisfied for it. As for the contest, this artwork gets the second winner and I got Wacom One for the prize. Thank you guys for watching this video and see you next time.